Hi guys, congratulations to all of you for signing up for English 10 pre-AP. This is a rigorous course, but it's great preparation for later AP classes and also college and career. So I think you're going to find it a really rewarding course, even though it is rigorous at times. So I wanted to go ahead and go over, first off, the kind of way I'm envisioning the course, but also the summer work that will be associated with it. So first off, I wanted to go over, what the course will look like. So, as you know, this is supposed to prepare you for English 11 and English AP, which are two other rigorous courses. I know that your freshman year you read a lot of American literature. That's kind of all we read outside of Shakespeare. Basically, your junior year, if you continue on the AP track, you'll be taking AP 11, which is focused on nonfiction, and again, usually American literature. And then by your senior year, you're reading a lot of British literature, again, American literature, so you'd never really get the chance to experience the vast world of world literature. Here and there, little pockets of it, but not a devoted study to world literature. So I decided to go ahead and take the course down that route. So we're going to be traveling across the world in our reading. We'll be looking at different continents and authors from these different continents, some history, things like that. And we're going to start in the continent of Africa. So for summer reading, that's what we're going to focus on, and then we're going to move into the fall as well before we move on to a different location. So the first thing that we're all going to be reading this summer is The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. So this book is by an American author. The other ones that you have to choose from are all African authors. The reason I chose this book is that it gives us a really rich history and overview of specifically the Congo and why a lot of the issues that are happening or that had happened in Africa, why a lot of them had to do with colonization and other countries trying to come in and tell the people there what was best for them. So in this particular book, The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver, we basically follow this American family. They're missionaries, they're Baptist missionaries, and they're going to the Congo to kind of fix these people, to help these people, to save these people. But they don't know really anything about them or their culture or their way of life. And so as you might imagine, they end up more changed than the people they're trying to change. This follows four sisters, and a father and his wife or the mother as they go through the Congo and try to bring religion there. And it jumps around in perspective, so it's a really rich novel. It is a chunker. It's really big, so don't wait till the last minute to read it. I think you'll find as you're reading it, it is quite a page turner. There's a lot going on here. But if you wait to the last minute, it won't be an enjoyable read, so don't do that to yourselves. Read it early on. So that's our first book. So the other book that you're going to read, you have some options to choose from. So I'm going to just really briefly go over those. You can, of course, look them up online on Goodreads or on Amazon to see more about them. They're all very highly rated books, and books I think you'll really enjoy. So the first one is called Now is the Time for Running by Michael Williams. This book is set in Zimbabwe, and we start out with a young boy, Dio, who very early on, so not a spoiler or anything, very early on sees his community just ravaged by violence. And so he takes his younger brother, Innocent, with him, and Innocent is a person with disabilities, with a disability. And so while Dio's trying to kind of travel and get to safety in South Africa, he's also trying to kind of keep his brother, calm, because his brother will sometimes have meltdowns over things. He just gets, overwhelmed. And so he's trying to really get them to safety. However, because they're refugees and people are very suspicious of them and distrustful, they're met with a great deal of, suspicion and dislike from the people that they're trying to get help from. So an amazing book, a really sad book, and as you can tell, there's soccer in it, so if you're into that sport or if you enjoy athletics generally, this might be a great book for you as well, because I've noticed the scenes that contain games are very, vivid with detail, and they reference it quite frequently. So first option, Now is the Time for Running. The second option you have has been really popular the last couple years. It's even at Walmart, so it's hit big when it shows up in the Walmart book aisle in Logansport. So this is called Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. Tomi Adeyemi is a Nigerian-American author, and she studied quite a bit of African folklore. So if you really enjoy folklore or mythology, this is the book for you. This is a fantasy YA book, so it is a chunker. It's a lot thicker than some of the others. But do remember that fantasy goes by a lot faster sometimes than other genres, so I wouldn't just discount it or we wouldn't throw it out just because it's thick. You could probably get through it much faster. So in this particular text, we're in West Africa, and we're meeting a young girl whose really community has been ravaged by violence of different kinds. So in this case, there's a king who's very against magic, and so he's gotten rid of, he's killed, assassinated these people who have magic in their communities. And so our narrator is someone who's trying to bring magic back and who suffered a great deal of violence because of this evil king. So great fantasy read for those who are interested. Okay, the next option you have is nonfiction. This is a memoir. It's called Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. I will say Trevor Noah hosts The Daily Show, so you might have seen him before. He's a very popular personality. If you're not into his politics, I wouldn't throw this book out because it isn't really about American politics. It's about his life growing up in Africa, specifically during apartheid. So here he's in South Africa, and Noah's talking about how he's literally, his very existence is illegal. So his mother is black and his father is white, and during apartheid that was illegal. You weren't allowed to be in a relationship with someone from a different race. So because he was lighter skinned, people knew he was mixed race, and so he had to hide for a great deal of his childhood. So this is an adult memoir. It's not YA like some of the others we've looked at. So there are some adult themes, so do keep that in mind. But it's a really touching book. His mother's fiercely religious in it, so you get a lot of that story and her story, and there's kind of a miracle at the core here that's really beautiful. But again, true, it's a memoir, true story. But he also mixes it with humor, so it's just an interesting genre, an interesting mix of approaches to looking at life under apartheid in Africa. Okay, our next book takes place in Sierra Leone, and this is A Long Way Gone, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier by Ishmael Beah. This is another YA text, and this is, again, another memoir, like Born a Crime. And this particular text, Ishmael Beah is looking back at his childhood where he was recruited into being a boy soldier. So I think it was the age of 12. He fled violence, and in fleeing he was basically kind of roped into becoming a soldier, and these are young kids with guns who are given drugs and who are asked to do horrible things. And so he's recounting the story later on, looking back. So it is a true story of his childhood. Of course there'll be some violence in this and many of these texts, so keep that in mind, but a really gripping read. I think you guys will enjoy. And your last option is Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is set in Nigeria, and you probably heard of Adichie. She is a really famous speaker and author, a beautiful speaker. And really early on in the year, we're going to watch a TED Talk by her that talks about something I think is really important for a course on world literature, which is not making assumptions about an entire group of people based off of one story. And I think that's, again, very relevant and important to keep in mind when you're reading world literature, that just because one person experienced this in this one country, this one continent, doesn't mean that everybody has that same experience. So we're going to listen to a TED Talk with this author really early on in the year. And this is a really beautiful literary fiction piece. It follows a young girl as she is kind of experiencing her everyday family life. She lives a life of privilege to many. She is well off, she has a good education. However, her dad is fiercely religious, and so in a lot of ways she suffers under a really tyrannical sort of parenting. However, there's a military coup that her parents end up sending her to live with her aunt, and that's a very different way of life. So her aunt is a professor, and the life she lives there is very cozy and sweet and wonderful. But at some point she does have to return home and make ends of that. So this is another beautiful text, literary fiction, and one of the options you have. So again, guys, we're all going to be reading the Poisonwood Bible, but you have a choice for your second book of which of these 5 you want to read. They're all excellent. I think you'll enjoy any of them, depending on your taste. If you're not quite sure, you can always email me, and again, feel free to do your own research on some of these texts to see which would best fit you. Okay, thank you so much. I hope you have happy reading.